On this day in New York sports history, the New York Giants beat the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game. And today, we're going to do something a little bit different because usually we give you the history and tell you what happened, but it's better if we speak with somebody who was actually there. So joining me now is a two-time Super Bowl champion and a fan favorite guest on the Blue Rush preview show. That is Dave Tollefson, coming to you from Nebraska. Dave, what's up? How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Just reminiscing in this cold weather out here about that day.
Well, yeah, and that day was cold too, so we can get into that. But Dave, before we get into that game up in Lambeau, could you just walk us through that season for the G-Men? Was there something different about the group of guys in that run to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, there was, and that carried on to really the next run as well. You had a bunch of guys that wanted to do their job. They weren't going to blame anybody else for not being able to do their job. And we all had a common goal to just keep winning games. That year was interesting for me personally. I showed up in, I believe it was week 5 off of the Raiders practice squad. That was Lane Kiffin's rookie year in Oakland, so you could imagine what that looked like. And then I get to Tom Coughlin in New York, so it was a total different way of doing things. And we knew we were good. And really, it wasn't until that New England game at the end of the season that they beat us that we're like, wow, we're really good. We can play with anybody. We can win anywhere. And that gave us the confidence. But it was such a Tom Coughlin type team. Let's go to work. We practiced outside that week. It was cold in New York that week leading up to the game. And then Green Bay, the Packers had to practice inside because they had so much snow. Now they said they left the doors open and whatnot, but you got to be outside to get ready for what we were running into. And Tom did such a good job. We had fuzzy little earmuffs inside our helmet. I mean, the equipment guys did an incredible job getting us ready. And that team was so tight and everybody knew exactly what they were supposed to do that when we ran into situations like we did in Green Bay with that weather, we were ready.
Yeah, I remember those little earmuffs because I was at some of those practices that week leading up to that game. And yeah, it was cold here in New York. Now, January 20th, 2008, which is the date that we're talking about with the Giants, they were heading to the famous Lambeau Field to face Brett Favre and the Packers. What's your memories of that game? Other than the cold, Dave, what's your memories of that game?
What really was Brandon Jacobs right out the gate running over Charles Woodson. And when that happened, I think it was maybe a 4-yard gain, if that. It wasn't this huge, but that was kind of like, oh, okay, they're not ready for what we're going to bring to this particular football game. And obviously, Plexico played out of his mind. I mean, it's so interesting because, Plexico's he's an East Coast guy, but from down south, played at Michigan State, and you see him perform so well in these cold weather games. And there's so much put on, where did these guys play in high school? Where did they play in college? Well, if Tom, I sound like Tom Coughlin. If you want to win the game, you're going to find a way, right? And that was what the group was. And again, you told me not to say it, but it was cold. Like, I played football for a really long time, Dexter, and that was probably the only game in my life that I really didn't want to play.
No, I mean, listen, I get it. Somebody also did like some weather reporting before. There's some situations you're like, we don't really need to be out here. But you guys were out there and you got the win. So I want to ask you this too, because friend of the show and your former teammate, Lawrence Tynes, he famously missed 2 field goals in that game. Now, when he missed those 2 field goals, what was going through your mind at the point when he had to step up in OT to win it? Were you thinking like, hey man, he better not miss this one again?
That's interesting. And I kind of refer back to what I said earlier. No, I wasn't worried. The team was so good at compartmentalizing what they had to do that we knew that Lawrence worked extremely hard at his job. He said it before. He came to all the off-season stuff, worked out with the guys. Like, he was part of the team, unlike a lot of other kickers. So when he was going to kick the ball, I thought it was a little long, right? 43 yards. Is that what it was? But we figured he was the guy for the job. I wasn't going out there to kick the ball. Neither was OC or Strahan, and it really ended up working out. I just can't believe he kicked it that far, honestly. In that weather, I remember him sitting on the bus the week of the Super Bowl with his foot on the chair, and I looked at it, and it was black and blue. It looked like he kicked a brick. I said, "What's that?" He's like, "Dave, if we had to play a week after the Green Bay game, I wouldn't have been able to play." I mean, it was his foot was twice the size and blown up like a hot air balloon.
Wow, the fact that he made that in the cold with that pain, that is absolutely amazing. So last thing here, Dave, as we're recording this, the Giants are heading down to Philly to take on, as you know, the hated Eagles. So quickly, what are your thoughts about this game? And do you see any similarities with this team to that '07 group?
I think it's a really tough matchup. I think Minnesota was tough, but I felt good about that. I felt good going to Minnesota. We almost beat them in the regular season. You know, the Philly kind of had their way with us those two games this season in the regular season, but playing a team a third time is a tall order. It really is. I don't know if you remember, we had the number one seed in '08, and Philly came to our place and beat us. And that always kind of lingers back there. I don't know how much this group remembers something like that, but it'd feel really good for me and a bunch of the other guys that went through that. If we go down to Philly and get a win and knock them out, man, that would feel pretty good. I might celebrate a little more than I celebrated for the Minnesota win. You know.
Okay, all right, that's good, and we'll see if they go and get that win. A lot of momentum could be riding into that with the NFC Championship game, and we'll see how far the Giants can go. But that is Dave Tollefson, friend of the show, former Giant, Super Bowl champ. We appreciate you for coming on and sharing your thoughts on this day in New York sports history. And Dave, out in Nebraska, you got to stay warm, okay? Just stay warm for us.
I'll be all right. I got some adult beverages that'll take care of that.
I'm sure it will. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, take care.